Hi, everyone. My name is Daniela. I am 25 years old, and like any other 25-year-old, I decided to start a podcast. Something to differentiate me. I have a MSW, which is a Master's of Social Work, and I hold mental health very highly in my life. I currently work teaching domestic violence classes, self anger management classes, and parenting classes to court mandated and volunteer clients. So, have about a year and a half with that, as well as experiences working with children, adolescents, and even people my age, which was really interesting. And I am a mother of he's about to be 18 months. So in June, it's still a little while out. But for those who like to measure in months, he's almost 18 months in June. So I have a little bit of experience, personal, professional experience. And I just want to educate the public. Maybe we'll make these podcasts in Spanish. We'll see, so I can continue practicing my Spanish. But so, if that is something that interests you, I would really appreciate you sticking around and maybe we can learn a thing or two together. I am a TikTok fiend. I love TikTok and I love scrolling, especially for background noise. But realize whenever I'm doing the dishes or something that requires more hands on attention, I prefer YouTube videos and I prefer podcasts as well. So I was like, why not dip my feet into this? So we'll see how it goes. All right. So I came across this LinkedIn post and I thought it was really interesting. I'm going to go ahead and read it. Unpopular opinion, but I'm saying it anyways. Self diagnosing on TikTok is not mental health awareness, it's digital misinformation. We need to talk about the rise of people diagnosing themselves with ADHD, autism, BPD, OCD, CPTSD, because of a 15-second video that listed vague symptoms like you interrupt people or sometimes you zone out. That is not mental health literacy, that is clickbait. Yes, mental health awareness has grown, and that's a good thing. People are finally talking about anxiety, depression, neurodivergence. But somewhere along the way, we started confusing reliability with diagnosis. You feeling tired, scattered, or overwhelmed doesn't mean you have ADHD. You feeling emotionally reactive or sensitive doesn't mean you're definitely BPD. You enjoying alone time doesn't make you on the spectrum, but TikTok and Instagram Reels make these complex clinical conditions look like personality quizzes, and people are internalizing that. Some even start tailoring their identity around a label they've never been professionally assessed for. And it's not their fault, it's the algorithm. It feeds what gets engagement and not what's accurate. The danger? People self diagnose and self treat without any real understanding or support. Actual mental health conditions get trivialized. Excuse me. And worth of all, and worst of all, people who need help might delay or avoid proper diagnosis because they think they already know. Also, I think they're not mentioning the fact that therapy is really expensive. Uh, and yeah, sometimes people don't have access to mental health resources, which I think might be more of a case than already know type of mentality. Anyways, wrapping up, mental health isn't a vibe. It's not a trending topic. It's medical, it's clinical, it's psychosocial, it's personal, and it deserves more than a 30-second video can give it. So here's a reminder, if you see yourself in a mental health post, that's the moment to get curious, not conclusive. Talk to a real professional, explore it with critical mind. Don't jump into a label because it feels comforting or cool. Awareness is power, but accuracy is what actually helps. And as somebody who has been on that side of TikTok before, even during grad school, he makes a really good point. I think it is really cool that mental health and the verbiage is becoming more accessible, but just like any pendulum, we swing one way to an extremity until we have to find our balance again, right? Um, my personal pet peeve is whenever people label weather as unpredictable as bipolar. Um, right? There's like, "Oh, I'm so manic," right? So using these words, these medical terms so loosey goosey kind of takes away the seriousness of it, right? Because a diagnosis isn't like a death sentence. Um, if we're gonna get technical, a diagnosis is for insurance so that they can cover your therapy visit, if I'm being honest. Everybody fits into a diagnosis. Actually, it is required for your first appointment with your therapist. So there is a fun fact right there. But also, in order to fit a diagnosis, or is even one where it's unspecified. So that's what I mean by everybody literally fits into a diagnosis. Um, but yeah, even to get a diagnosis, you have to fit these, criteria, right? And I remember going to my first therapist, and I had very low self-esteem. I had a lot of anxiety issues. I was struggling with depression. I think because of my low self-esteem, I was looking for external validation when I should have been giving myself that validation that I needed. So that led me to make some very unsafe choices for myself. And my therapist thought that I was bipolar, right? So that also made me go into a spiral, right? Um, so it's tricky. And one thing that I remember that my supervisor told me is that we don't treat this diagnosis, we treat the symptoms. And as an intern in my master's program, I did not necessarily know what she meant by that. But as I have been continuing in my career, she is so right. A diagnosis is just like a very general diagnosis, right? But how is that impacting our life? How do we want to get to our quality of life? Like, what does that look like for us, right? So, if we have social anxiety, do we want to have more friends? Do we want to go out more? Do we want to be invited to places, right? What are our goals? How is this getting in our way of living our best life, right? And so sticking to that idea, right? Another concept I want to bring in is learned helplessness. As somebody who has been on this side of the coin, and again, I'm one person out of 8 billion people on this planet, but that means probably my experience isn't unique to myself. I felt like I used it as a self defense mechanism to not hold myself accountable or responsible for my actions and what I did, right? It's easier to be like, ha ha ha, I was manic, than I threatened to do XYZ thing that could have had some serious consequences down the line, right? Um, and I think that it's learned helplessness that kind of leads us to want a diagnosis because it's so hard and it's such a hard pill to swallow. But I think once you do, you can take control back of your life. But life is hard. Life is literally going to be full of challenges. It can be something so small and so trivial as your shoelace becoming untied before you have to leave the home, or it can be something so serious and so flip your world upside down, like being sent to prison and being experiencing houselessness, losing your family, experiencing love or decline in health in a loved one or in yourself, right? Those are serious problems. We're not playing the problem Olympics here, right? Both cause some level of stress in people. But that is the thing. Life is going to throw stuff at us that are out of our control. And it is our responsibility to get through it,